investment, but couldn't get couldn't get in this morning. But a little peak below and reclaim today on that chart. Looks possibly okay.
Doesn't wanna say something too good about it.
Apple all time high.
Ethereum
I
doesn't
text.
Ethereum doesn't look that amazing.
Uh, ooh, I hadn't looked at that. I rejected 4,000, didn't it? Yeah, that's not super fun, but it's okay. It looks a lot better than it did Friday afternoon. I mean, it could turn into a bear flag, but either way, I text Stock Talk earlier because the only two Mag 7 stocks that he owns are the only two that have not made all-time high. I figured you took a victory lap with Apple at some point today in this conversation.
I was on the run for 4 months, stole $600,000. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada. One day, I had stolen the night before, I'd stolen 160K out of ATMs. Went in the next morning, I woke up, signed on to cartersmarket.com, which was ran by Max Butler, the Iceman. And there's my name, US Most Wanted on it. And that gets your attention. It was my real name with the US Most Wanted beside of it. Nobody knew my real name in that environment at all, but then they did. And it was talking about me being part of the Secret Service, Operation Anglerfish, everything else. So of course they're all
So
like
everybody's after
they're like,
you.
oh yeah, we're going to get this son of a bitch.
The following is a conversation with Brett Johnson, a former cyber criminal who built the first organized cybercrime community called Shadow Crew that is the precursor to today's darknet and darknet markets. He's referred to by the United States Secret Service as, quote, the original internet godfather. He has been the central figure in the cybercrime world for almost 20 years, placed on the U.S. Most Wanted list in 2006 before being convicted of 39 felonies for cybercrime, escaped from prison, and then eventually being locked up, served his time, and now is helping people understand and fight cybercrime. This was a raw, honest, emotional, and real episode. Brett has caused a lot of pain to a lot of people, and yet his own story is full of trauma and pain, and also redemption and love. This is a good time to say that I have and I will talk to people who have served time in prison, and perhaps people who currently are in prison. I will try to do my best to both empathize with the person across from me and not let them sugarcoat, explain away, or dismiss the crimes they committed. This is a tough line to walk because if you close your heart to the other person, you'll never fully understand their mind and their story. But if you open the heart too much, you can be manipulated to where the conversation reveals nothing honest or real. This requires skill and willingness to take the risk. I don't know about the skill part, but I'd like to take the risk. I always wear my heart on my sleeve. If I get hurt for it, that's life. As I've said, I want to understand what makes a person do these crimes, the particular characteristics of their temporary or permanent madness, their justifications, but also their humanity. I believe each of us have the capacity to become both the criminal and the victim, the predator and the prey. It's up to us to avoid these paths or to find the path to redemption. It's on each of us. It's our responsibility and burden of being human in a complicated and dangerous world. This is the Lex Friedman Podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Brett Johnson. You were convicted of 39 felonies for cybercrime, placed on the U.S. Most Wanted list in 2006, escaped from prison. You built the first organized cybercrime community called Shadow Crew that is the precursor to today's darknet and darknet markets. And for all this, the U.S. Intelligence Service called you the original internet godfather. So first question, how did your career as a cybercrime criminal begin?
My life of crime begins when I'm 10 years old. 10 years old, man. Think about that. I mean, you were probably playing with robots when you were 10.
Mhm.
Usually kids are doing the Lego bit, getting involved with sports, everything else. And with me, it wasn't like that. With me, I'm from Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is one of these. It's like parts of Texas, parts of Louisiana. That if you're not fortunate enough to have a job, you may be involved in a scam, hustle, fraud, whatever you want to call it. Man, I was. My parents, my mom was basically the captain of the entire fraud industry. So this is a this is a woman that at one point she's stealing a 108,000 pound Caterpillar D9 bulldozer, tramming it down the road. At another point she's taking a slip and fall in a convenience store trying to sue the owner. We had a neighbor she acted as a pimp for at one point. That's my mom. My dad,
Wait. The neighbor acted as a pimp.
my mom prostituted. I mean, she acted as a pimp for a neighbor. Her name was Debbie, and My mom used to sell her out. You know, Debbie needed money, and my mom would find men for her to sleep with for cash, and she'd take a part of the cash.
So it sounds like she diversified the methodologies by which she hustled.
Very had that entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay.
You know,
So
we see that a lot with cyber criminals. You know, that sense of being that entrepreneur.
so what was the motivation you think for her? Is it money? Is it basically the rush of playing with the system of being able to um, know the rules and break the rules and get away with it?
My mom's a complex character. She is. There's no one single motivation. So my mom was the individual. She's still alive. My mom was the individual who tested people. She wanted to know how far she could abuse you and you come back and still love her. So, and that was with every relationship she's ever had. She would cheat on the men she was involved with. She would abuse her children, me and Denise. She would,
Psychological, physical?
oh, it was mental, emotional, physical, everything, everything. I mean, she used to beat me and Denise with belt buckles, you know, and that ended when she was. I forgot what we had done. It wasn't much. I think that um, it may have been the part where she accused me of stealing her marijuana, but she was hitting me and Denise. We were living in a single wide trailer at that point. She was hitting me and Denise. We were on the bed trying to get away from it, and Denise kicks her through a closet. Is what happens. And Denise stands up and she said, "You're through hitting me." And that was the last time that mom hit us at that point. But
So sorry to take us there. You're for people who know you, and people should definitely watch some of your lectures online. You're extremely charismatic
thank
and fun and uh, jolly, and whatever word you want to use. But if we look at that kind of life, there's darkness there. There's struggle there.
there's a
Is it
lot of darkness.
so? If you how did you feel if you go back to the mind of the kid you were with your mom? Was there sadness? Was there things like depression, self-doubt, all those kinds of things? Or did you see this crime, this chaos as ultimately exciting?
You know, I don't think back then I didn't view it as exciting. Now it becomes exciting when I start being involved in cybercrime. All right, but back then it was simply a means to an end. Was all it was. So you take a 10-year-old kid, and the way I get involved in crime is, like I said, my mom was the fraudster. My dad was a good guy. He just forgot he was this good guy. You know, he always had these principles, but his issue is he loved my mom so much he was scared of her leaving. So if she wanted to do something, commit crime, cheat on him, whatever, he would pretty much just put up with it. The one instant. So I mean, this woman she used to bring men home in front of him, tell him that, hey, I'm leaving you. I don't love you anymore. I want you to die. Blah 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 blah. This was my mom. Um, there were two instances where he can't take it anymore. And the first instance, I guess I was 7 or 8. My sister Denise is a year younger than I am. My dad actually files for divorce. Files for divorce at that point. My mom kind of goes crazy. I was with my dad. My sister was with my mother because that's that Eastern Kentucky mentality. You know, men stay with men, women stay with women. So he was filing for divorce. Me and my dad, we were living in an apartment. My mom was living with her grandparents and with her parents, bouncing back and forth between the two. And I remember I was sleeping in the bed. We had a single wide bed. My dad slept on the sofa. I woke up one night and there was some sort of ruckus in the living room. So I wake up and I walk into the living room, and my mom has a knife to my dad's throat. And basically, you're not going to steal my son from me. My mom was this individual that when she knew she went so far, like I said, she was always this person that tested. Well, can I do this to you and you'll still come back? She knew she was always also this person that if she went too far, she knew it and she would always try to divert that into something else. All right. So she knew at that point she'd went too far. So what does she do? She gets up crying, goes to the bathroom and pretends to slit her wrists so that my dad, Ray, will respond to that, not respond to what she's just done to him.
Mm.
That was my mom in a nutshell. And she had a history of doing this kind of stuff. Um, Motivations as far as fraud with her, I think with her, it was she was an LPN. She had and a very good nurse, but she didn't want to work was a lot of it. So with her, it was easier for her to commit fraud. And when I say commit fraud, it was against businesses, against people. I remember at one point she's buying over the counter capsules and emptying the capsules out and putting some other crap in there and selling it at a speed, and people were buying it. This She did anything she could for money, and of course I get involved with that. What happens is we were in Panama City at that point, and my mom leaves my dad, and the way she left my dad, my great grandfather had died. My mom tells all three of us, "Hey, I'm taking the kids and we're going back to Eastern Kentucky to attend the funeral."
Mm.
Well, that was her leaving. Me and Denise didn't know it. She didn't pack any of our clothes at all. She stows her clothes in the trunk of the car, and she leaves my dad. And I don't get to see my dad again for I think 5, 6 years, something like that. My mom, like I said, she used to bring men home in front of my dad. She would he'd sit there and cry and beg her not to do it. She'd do it anyway. When she leaves him, she kept up that. So we were living at my grandparents' house. My grandfather, he had converted the house. He had raised the house up and built apartments underneath of it. So me and my sister and my mom lived in one of the apartments underneath, and that whole side of the family was just nuts. Was nuts. My granddad Paul, he would. this this is a man that he didn't want you to eat any of his food. So, there was no such thing as me and Denise going upstairs to eat. If he found out me and Denise was taking a bath, we were allowed to bathe in 2 inches of water one time a week because he didn't want to have to pay the water bill.
There's rules.
The rules, if you couldn't have the TV on when he went to bed at night, you had to have the television, the volume. You could watch it, but without volume, because if he heard it, he would get up in the middle of the night and he would kick the power breaker, turn off all the power on you. This is my the family, right? So my mom, she used to leave me and Denise at home for days, man, for days. She'd go out and party, and I mean sometimes she'd take me and Denise with her. We'd wait in the car. Sometimes we'd wait in the living room as she went and partied and everything else. Most of the time she left us at home, and my entry into crime. Denise walks in one day. She's 9 years old, man. She walks in one day and she's got a pack of pork chops in her hand, and looked at her and I said, "Where'd you get that?" And she's like, "I stole it." And it's like, "Show me how you did that." So she takes me over and she shows me how she steals food, how she's stuffing it down her pants. So we start stealing food. I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do that shit." So start stealing food, and we get to the point where we're wanting a sandwich. Well, you can't stuff a loaf of bread down your pants. So there was a Kmart in the shopping center. I go over to the Kmart, get a hoodie off the rack, take the tags off of it, wear it out, worked just fine. And the way you steal bread is you put the hoodie over your shoulder, stuff a loaf of bread down the sleeve, and you walk out with it. So we started doing that.
How'd you figure that out?
Just thought pattern.
So
It's like,
so there's like strategic thinking here.
yeah,
Because
you
there's a
can't
lot.
wear the hoodie and put the bread down here because you might mash the bread when you zip it up, or they
Yeah,
might
but you have to
notice the
think
bread.
through
So
that.
you got to think through it. But
Okay.
but you got to realize by this point, I'm already seeing what my parents are doing. I'm already seeing
So
seeing the plotting and
that kind of
everything. So
puzzle solving was something you were already developing
oh
yourself
yeah,
individually because
oh
you're
yeah,
pretty young.
yeah. 10 years old, pretty young, but seeing how they act, how they respond to things, and my mom, I guess you could call it a good thing. They never kept any of that hidden from the kids.
Yeah.
There was no discussions behind closed doors. All that happened in front of everybody.
And from your young mind's perspective, seeing that kind of crime, you basically, a lot of us kind of grow up thinking there's rules you're not supposed to break. If you see other humans breaking those rules, then you realize those rules are just human made.
But it gets worse than that. I was in an environment where there were no decent people. I didn't really meet my first decent person until I was 16 years old.
Who's that?
That was a high school teacher. So what happens is we start shoplifting food. My mom finds out that we've been stealing stuff, and she joins us.
What's that?
She joins us.
She
Yeah, she comes in. I've got the Intellivision, I've got the Atari 2600, play the hell out of it.
Oh my
And
god.
she starts seeing this shit. She's like, "Where'd this come from?" And I'm like, "Well, we found it." She's like, "You didn't find that." Denise stands up. "We stole it. My mom, show me how you did that." And she gets her mom too to join in. And she used to run me and Denise as these little shoplifters. We'd take, we'd steal stuff for her, or we would distract security, and her and my grandmother would steal stuff. They got caught doing that. But that's the entry into crime. And Denise, I'm adamant, and I kind of mean it.
Mhm.
But the truth is, I say, and I do mean it, that I'm responsible for my choices as an adult. All right. I believe that when you're a child, you can't control that. The adults in your environment control what you do.
Yeah.
All right. Once you're an adult, though, your choices are yours. Now, that being said, there's some, you can't dismiss that childhood influencing what I did as an adult. You can't do that. I mean, it was kind of written on slate that, hey, this guy's going to be this guy when he grows up.
That said, like sometimes that one person you meet, that decent person, can turn the tides of your
Absolutely,
life.
absolutely. So what happens is the abuse, everything continues on. When I'm 15, my dad was in Panama City, Florida. My mom was in, we were in Hazard, Kentucky. She she was dating this guy. And my mom was this woman that the abuse would it was crazy abuse, man, just crazy stuff. She would tell me and my sister, that she gave up her life for us, that she was going to leave one day and never come back, that we'd find her dead in a ditch someplace. She'd go out and date these men, and she'd come back and she'd talk about how these men were abusing her. So she'd be dating this guy, and she'd come back and she'd start talking about how he had tried to rape her, trying to get me to respond to that. And I would respond to that. Make no doubt, I would respond to that. Well, what happens is, and I knew that, I don't know if I knew it was abuse at that age, all right, but I knew things were fucked up. And I was talking to my dad in Panama City, and I really had it in my head that I was going to go down and live with my dad. And I called my dad one day. I was set to go to, me and my cousins were going to go see Return of the Jedi. It had came out again in the theaters. So I called my dad. It was a Sunday. Called my dad, and he told me he had either gotten married or he was about to get married to this woman. And basically, Brett Johnson wasn't going to go down to Florida. I was going to stay in Hazard. I had to call my dad from a payphone, but the result of that was I walked into a hospital, got in an elevator, and a woman got in the elevator at the same time, and I snapped and beat the hell out of her right there. And I was 15. Didn't really know what the fuck happened. Didn't really know. But
Just anger came from somewhere.
yeah, yeah. And the elevator beat the hell out of this lady. Turned out she looked a shitload like my mom. But the elevator doors open. One of the security guards, I played basketball with his son, so he saw me immediately. I knocked the hell out of him, took off running, made it back to the house where my grandparents were. They didn't know what had happened, so I didn't say anything. About an hour later, Kentucky State Police, they pull up in the front yard, and two of them get out, and I'm sitting on the front porch, and me and my cousins are, and they start walking up. Well, everybody starts walking out of the house, and I'm like, I just remember saying, "What do you want? What do you want?" Well, you knew what they wanted. They wanted to arrest Brett Johnson, and they arrested me. I went in, and I told them everything. Spent 3 months in a county jail. They didn't have juvenile facilities in that county, so I spent 3 months in solitary. Went to trial, pled guilty to assault in the first degree. The judge sentenced me to time served and a psychological evaluation, where they sent me to Louisville, Kentucky. And I spent 30 days up there. They cut me loose. They wanted me to have counseling after that, and never went to counseling. Wanted to, but mom was like, "Don't need it," and so never went to counseling. And I became this pariah in the county. Uh, it's crazy, man. I mean, not a day goes by that I don't think about that.
That moment in the elevator.
Yeah. And what happens is you're 15. Fuck, man, you're 15. So I go back to the high school that I was in, and I'm this piece of shit.
So everybody, you're now
Everybody
the
knows.
outcast.
Everybody knows. So I moved. We moved. We were in Whitesburg at that point. I finished up the year there and moved to back to Perry County, which is where Hazard is. So we moved there, and they've got 3 high schools there. They've got MC Napier, they've got Hazard High School, and then they've got Dills Combs High School. So me and Denise were within half mile of MC Napier. Show up there the first day of school, and I met me and my mom and my sister were walking into the school, and the kids won't let me in. The kids stand out there. He's not coming in. So my mom starts raising hell, and I'm like, "No, let's just go. Let's go." So from there, it was we went down to the city school, Hazard, and the principal tells my mom, "Denise can come. He can't." So my mom wants to raise hell, and I'm like, "No, let's just take me to this other school." So this other school was like 15 miles away, and country school, country high school. So I go there, and they accept me. And I walked in the first day, and this English teacher, name's Carol Combs. I walked in and handed her the paper. She was my homeroom teacher, and she heard this voice. As the way she explains it today, she heard this voice, and she looks up, and she was like, "Son, have you ever done any drama before?" And I'm like, "No, ma'am, but I'm interested in the academic team." I was this quick recall guy, right? And she's like, "No." She's like, "Drama." And I'm like, "No, I'm not interested in theater. I'm interested in academics." Well, she was the head of the drama department and head of the academics department. So the deal was, tell you what, you can get on the academics team if you start with theater too. And I was like, "Okay." So what happens is she was the first decent person I met in my life, and she became this kind of surrogate mother to me. So under her tutelage, I become the one of the top academic team guys in the state. Uh, Ran there, I was captain of the team. I was this just scourge across all the counties in that part of Kentucky. If we had a meet, it was like, Jesus Christ, that's Brett Johnson. And it was like she used to tell people the high school that I came from was Whitesburg, and the first time that Whitesburg came against us, she told me, I was talking to her about a year ago, and she told me, she's like, "Brett," she said, "that first meet against Whitesburg," she said, "the captain came in, looked at you, and said, 'Oh, you've got that Johnson boy on your team?' And she said, my response was, 'That Johnson boy is our team.'" So, but did that, and then with theater, I ended up my senior year. I won Best Actor and Actress in the state. Only guy to ever do that in the state. So did pretty well, man. Did pretty well. Had scholarships coming out of high school and everything else, and I'm the idiot that turned them down.
Ask you a funny question.
Yeah.
You'd make a hell of a, I mean, of all the many things you could probably do, you would make a hell of a actor.
I'm very good on stage. I'm very good on stage.
Have you acted professionally anywhere or no?
Not professionally. We've done the college circuit and stuff like that. What happened is so I turned down the scholarships. Scared of leaving, I guess is what it was. Starting community college, and the community college there hires a new theater director out of California. Well, he knew the guy that ran the San Jose State Theater program. A guy named Edward Emanuel was his name. His claim to fame, he had written the Three Ninjas movie. Remember that? The three little ninja kids
Mhm.
back in the 80s? He had written this for damn film, and it had made a shitload of money.
Mhm.
So he invites Ed Emanuel to come down and see the play, and Ed had written this Civil War piece. So we put that on. I was doing it was a multiple role thing. I was doing like 18 different roles in the show. So Ed sees the show and he's like, scholarship. He said, look, he said, right now you're a big fish in a small pond. We'll make you a big fish in a big pond. And I was
Mhm.
like, deal. So I took the scholarship, man. And he was like, I'll be back in 2 weeks. So he flies out. 2 weeks later, this guy flies back in. He drives down to where I'm living. I'm out shooting ball with my cousins and friends. He pulls up and he gets out of the car, and I was like, walk over to him. I was like, hey, man, I'll walk you in. You can meet my parents. He's like, no, I got it. I was like, okay. So I keep shooting ball. He walks in the house, stays about 15 minutes, walks out, white as a sheet, doesn't say a word to me, gets in the car, leaves. I don't hear from him again. Had no idea what went on. Takes me a couple weeks. What happened is my mom, he walks in, introduces himself. My mom pulls a knife on the guy. I will kill you. You are not going to steal my goddamn son from me. Scares the guy to death. He bugs out. And kind of broke my spirit at that point. I was like, okay. So went into just full-fledged into scams, crimes, everything else. I had already been, when I was a minor, I'd already been kind of brought up on that side of the family with the crimes that they were doing. My mom was, drug trafficking, the pimp stuff, illegally mining coal, charity fraud.
Illegally mining
Yeah,
coal?
wildcatting coal. So
Can you explain that?
yeah, so to properly mine coal, you have to get a permit. All right. Eastern Kentucky, a lot of people they can't afford the permits. They can get them a piece of equipment. You get a dozer and a loader or whatever you're going to get, or an auger or what have you. So you start mining, but you don't get the permit. So you don't have to you don't have to pay. Back then it was like $3,500 for a 2-acre permit, or $5,000 for a 2-acre permit. Let you strip mine the coal on that. Then you have to pay for the reclamation on top of that. So once you uncover the pit, take the coal out, you have to cover back up the pit, sow grass, make sure everything is environmentally friendly. You got to have
wow.
a silt pond, everything else at that point.
So the whole idea is you buy an acre of land or some area of land, and then there's a whole process you're supposed to go through to
Entire
mine it.
process.
How many people are involved in a mining? The smallest number of people required for a mining operation?
You can do it with 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
So you've got your loader operator, you've got your dozer operator. You need you can farm out the trucking to someone if you need that, or a trucking company if you need to do that. Then you've got whoever owns the business as well. So very few people can run an operation like that and profit fairly well, as long as you don't have to do the reclamation, all that crap on top of it. All right. The reclamation gets pretty expensive. So if you're uncovering a pit of coal, a pit, so a ton of coal is basically about 36 cubic inches, is what 2,000 pounds of coal weighs if you're in Eastern Kentucky, because it's at the weight of the bituminous coal and
The
everything.
fact that you know this is awesome. The fact that you know exactly the volume of a ton of coal. I mean, this is great.
Yeah, you learn this shit, right? You can rattle this shit off. So you uncover the pit, and then you've got to sell the pit. Well, the thing is that where are you going to sell the coal? Well, you sell it to one of these other coal tipples that knows that they're buying the shit illegally. So back then, a ton of coal was they'd give you like $36 per
Yeah.
ton, is what that is. And you'd have to go out and you'd test the BTUs on it. You'd take a sample to the lab, test the BTUs. You'd take that into the
What's
company.
BTU?
British Thermal Unit. So you'd test what the BTU on the coal was,
How
back-
pure the coal is?
how pure the coal is,
Yeah.
what BTU it burns at. Back then, a good BTU was around 12.9 was what you'd get. All right, so 12.9 coal, $36 a ton. You'd take that sample over to the coal tipple. They'd say, okay, we'll buy this for you. How many trucks you got, or how many tons you got? And you say, this is what we've got. Then you'd hire the trucking company, and where you get it out, because you've got the agents that are looking for you by this point, because the people that you've bought the rights to, whoever the landowner is. You said you're going to give them $2 a ton or whatever this is. Well, the other people there, are you paying them off or are you not? Well, if you're not paying them off, guess what? They know your ass is mining it illegally. They're going to report you. Well, all of a sudden, you've got all these inspectors that are coming around and everything. And hey, we know what you're doing. So they're looking for you to get the pit out. So when do you get the pit out? Right in the dead of night. So, you're loading it up 2 o'clock in the morning, hauling its ass out is what you're doing. You sell it out from there. So,
And your mom ran operations like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And you said you worked the mine too when you were
Yeah,
younger?
learned how to run a loader, run a dozer, learned how to clean off a pit, everything like that. So this is the lifestyle you grow up in. You learn how to do this stuff, and so knew how to do charity fraud as well, insurance fraud. So
Charity fraud. Can we break down some of these are
charity fraud, it's much more romantic than what it sounds. It was basically it was basically standing beside the road with a sign and a bucket,
yeah.
taking up collections for homeless shelters, for abused women, for children, stuff like that. Then later on, I branched off. When I started off on my own, I would set up my own charity company and do some telemarketing and go on by and collect checks and things like that.
We're going to talk about that. But actually, can we just step back and talk about your mom
Sure.
and your dad? Given all of that, given all the abuse, the complex ways that she played with love
Right.
to see how far she can push you and the people around her, and they still love her. Today, do you love her?
I called my dad yesterday. My dad, he's dying now. He's got a heart condition. He's not going to get the operation to fix it. So he's like, "Fuck it, I'm ready to go." And I'm like, I looked at him because hell, I'm 52 now, and prior to 52, I'd have been like, "No, you need to do this." But I looked at him and I was like, "I understand. I understand. You're done." And so he's not going to get the operation. I was talking to him yesterday. And he asked me, he's like, "Have you seen your mom?" And I was like, "Dad, I've not talked to her for about 2 years." And I told him, I was like, "I love my mom, but my mom is not a good person. She's not." And he told me, I was talking to him on the phone yesterday, and he told me that it took him several years to really understand that. He loved her too, but it takes when you're getting abused like that, especially my dad. My dad came from a good family, everything else, and upstanding family. And I think that when you're that victim of abuse, you've never seen it before, you've never encountered it, and then it happens. Well, you're like that frog in water all of a sudden. You get to the point where it gradually increases until how do you get out of it? Everybody else sees what's happening, but you don't. I grew up in that environment though, so it took me a long time to come to terms with that. My sister came to terms with it long before I did. My sister, she's been a decade without talking to my mom. Like she had tried to commit suicide. I didn't know that. What got me so bad is she said at one point that she always thought someone was going to come in and save us. And my response, just immediate response, not even thinking about it, my response was, "Well, Denise, I knew no one ever was." And
Mhm.
looking at things now, I think that's where our paths diverged. Me, it was, if you're going to do it, if anybody's going to take care of you, you got to take care of yourself.
You're on your own.
You're on your own. It's up to you. And Denise has always been that child that has expected someone to come in and save her.
Well, and almost like it's all going to be okay. Somebody,
Yeah, and I knew it wasn't. No, you go
unless you,
unless you make it okay, it ain't going to be okay. So it
I-
was
are you able to forgive her, your mom?
my boundary with my mom. The reason I've not spoken with her over 2 years ago, I started this legal career of mine. I've been the guy who has I spent a lot of time thinking about my past and those choices and what brought those choices around. So I'm big about taking responsibility for my actions. I truly am. I think it's really important. You have to do that. Well, my mom, not so much. So I was talking to her, and I would start saying, she would start the conversation talking about she didn't understand why Denise wouldn't speak to her anymore. That was one of her tropes. So, and my response started to become, well, because you were the abuser and you spent your life doing that to her. So it's more healthy for her not to talk to you.
So she's still not able to see the flaws in
No.
her ways of the past.
No, not at all. So my ultimatum to my mom was, look, when you're able to admit that you abuse the people in your life, accept that responsibility, and be able to discuss it with me, we'll have a talk. Other than that, I don't want to talk to you anymore. So for the first year, it was, calling, cussing my wife out, cussing me out. Um, I don't need you out of blah, 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 blah. And then finally it started to taper off, and she's never really contacted me after that point.
Your dad is dying.
Yeah.
What do you take from the way he's taken on death? Just saying, fuck it.
It's the man.
And what have you learned from your dad? What do you love about your dad?
He's one of these guys that, like I told him. I told my dad about the abuse and everything else, and there was a point. So I told you about the elevator stuff,
Yeah.
but before that, man, it was. It took me 40 years to talk about that, but it also took me 40 years to talk about. There was a point that my mom and dad would leave the house, and I would urinate in the floor. All right, and
As a out of anger.
no idea why. All right, but I would piss on the carpet. Carpet pissers like the Lebowski, right? So it really tied the room together,
It
dude.
really tied the
So
room together.
I was talking about that, and this lady comes up to me after the presentation, and she had a career previous to that where she dealt with abused kids, and she told me, she's like, Brett, she's like, it's a control mechanism. The only control you had was that, and she's like, kids do that, and I was like, so I'm not unique. She's like, no, you're not unique in that. So that this whole history of abuse, Denise dealt with it by drinking, by trying to commit suicide, things like that. And then finally she escapes. I'm the kid that didn't. And not only that, my wife pointed out to me that it's that Eastern Kentucky mentality stuff. The male's expected to do things. So with me, it was almost like I stepped up to take part in those crimes so that Denise didn't have to. And she was able to avoid all that. Other than that one shoplifting stuff, Denise doesn't break the law anymore. She goes off to be she's a good parent. She's an angry parent. She's a good parent. She's a teacher, good citizen overall. I was just the guy that kept right on going with it.
Kept on going. So let me ask you about that. So your life of cybercrime. In describing some of the things you did or knew about, you said, quote, I once stole several $1,000s worth of coins from a
Mm.
family trying to sell them to put a new roof on their home. Another time, I sent a counterfeit cashier's check to a victim and he ended up being arrested for it. I lied to family, friends, everyone I knew. I was a truly despicable person.
True.
One of my Ukrainian associates' script had someone who owed him money kidnapped and tortured. He posted pictures of it online. Another member, Iceman, used to flood his enemies' email addresses with child pornography, then called the police on them. That's some stories. Can you tell some of these stories that stand out to you that are particularly despicable or representative or interesting when you
Sure.
look back at
Sure.
that defined your approach and who you were at that time?
Let me say that I did not care about my victim. All right. I cared about me, is what I cared about. It's rough to admit that. That you don't give a shit what you're doing to anybody else. You only care about you. But that's the truth of the matter. I didn't care about the victims. The lady that wasn't even at the beginning of my career as a cyber criminal. That was right at the last of it.
Which lady?
The coin lady. I was by that point. Shadow Crew had made the front cover of Forbes, August of 04. October 26th of 04, Secret Service had shut us down. 33 people arrested, 6 countries in 6 hours. I was the guy that was publicly mentioned as getting away. What happened was I was the guy who was I had kind of invented this crime called tax return identity theft, and was stealing a lot of money. I went through all my stateside savings, and Shadow Crew gets shut down. I don't have any way to come in with any money, so I start running counterfeit cashier's checks. defrauding people with that, having them send products or bullion collections, what have you, by COD, collect on delivery, and I would pay with it with a counterfeit cashier's check. This lady was on eBay. She had been collecting these silver coins all of her life. The US currency used to be, the coins used to be silver. So she had a whole collection of these things, like, I don't know, 80, 90 pounds of this stuff. And I'm a very good social engineer. So convinced her that I was a legitimate person, that, hey, send it to COD. You can use my FedEx account to do that, or my UPS account to do that. I'll pay with a cashier's check. You can take it in, same as cash. She believed that. She was even on the ad, and we talked on the phone and everything else. She had told me that she was a single parent, and it was the only money that she had to put a roof on the house for her and her kids. And I didn't give a damn. I didn't give a damn. What was more important was me at that point.
Can I ask you a question about the social engineering aspect? So maybe specifics like the methodology, email, you said phone. Maybe you could discuss this process from a bigger philosophical
Sure.
perspective of what is it about human beings that makes them possible to be socially engineered, to be victims of fraud?
So first, let me say that I became a social engineer as a child. All right, because the adults in my in my environment as a child, I had to know exactly what they were thinking and be able to try to manipulate that for survival. So I became a social engineer as for survival initially. All right, and one of the things that I've seen with a lot of cyber criminals is the exact same thing. The really expert ones, they become a social engineer as a child, then later on they use those tools to victimize others. All right.
Which is fascinating because in order to understand what others are thinking, you have to be extremely good at empathy. So you have
Right.
to like really put yourself in the shoes of the other person. And
Absolutely.
yet, in order to do cybercrime, you have to not care about the pain that might cause them once you manipulate them. So you have to empathize and yet not care about the
Exactly. And I would argue that that is not a sociopath, because a cyber criminal, and I was no different, most cyber criminals justify those actions. So the
Yes.
justification becomes what's important. With me, the justification was, well, I did it for my family, did it for my wife, did it for my stripper girlfriend.
Yeah.
So, and I believed
That's a
those
good story. I heard
justifications.
that one. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you
So,
about that because I care about love a lot.
yeah.
There's a
So
lot there.
the big picture of that is trust. How do you establish trust with a potential victim?
Yeah.
All right. Now, I would argue online that trust is established through a combination of technology, tools, social engineering.
Yeah.
All right. So we trust our tech. We trust our cell phones, we trust our laptops. A lot of times we don't understand how they operate, but we trust the news that comes across the line. We trust the phone numbers that show up. We trust IP addresses if we're advanced enough to look at an IP address or a domain or anything else like that. Criminals use tools to manipulate that: spoofed phone numbers, spoofed browser fingerprints, whatever that may be, whatever the tool may be. Then that lays a base level of trust. At that point, you shoot in with the social engineering and lay whatever story that is in order to manipulate that victim to act not out of reason, but out of emotion all of a sudden.
This is fascinating about the way humans interact with the world, which is you're almost too afraid to not trust the world. You have to find a balance. You have
Right.
you have a lot of sort of conspiracy theories now about distrusting institutions and thinking like everything around us. It's like I've been listening to people who believe the Earth is flat, and that conspiracy theory is fascinating to me because it basically says that you can't trust anybody.
Right.
That like everything you hear is a lie. So that's one. You can live that life, or you can live a life where you're just naively trusting everything. And we as humans have to, because that life is kind of full of happiness if nobody screws you over.
Right.
Because you meet people with the joyful heart and you get excited and all that kind of stuff. But if you do that too much, you're going to get burned. So you have to find some kind of balance in terms of optimizing happiness where you trust, but verify. And on the internet, that becomes really tricky. You're almost too afraid to distrust everything because you'll never get anything done
Right.
on the internet. but then if you trust too much, you can get screwed over. And so the social engineering comes in where you're like, "Yeah, I'm not sure if I should trust this." You kind of help them build the narrative where it's like, it's good.
It's good.
It's
And
good. It's
so and a lot of the times that they're talking about. If I'm working on a phone, talking to someone over the phone, I have to know within seconds what I need to say, how I need to act to interact with that customer service agent or whoever I'm talking to
Mhm.
on the other end of the line.
so fascinating because you truly are empathizing with the other person.
Absolutely.
What is it? This businessman, Steven Schwartzman. I've talked to a few times. He mentioned this thing that you know the way you build deep relationships is you really kind of notice things that people are telling you, like what they want and what they're bothered by. What are their big problems in their lives? Because everybody's saying that all the time, and most of us are just ignoring it.
Right.
You
But if
really
you
are
take
not
the
listening.
time to listen,
Yeah.
you know somebody at that point.
Yeah.
Absolutely you do. Then you have to be able to dismiss it.
Yeah, dismiss it after.
You're looking for that just to see how I can manipulate that is what you're trying to do. So that the lady was one story. Another truly despicable story. We'll get to script in a second,
Yeah.
but another truly despicable story. We were one of the really first groups that started phishing attacks.
What's
So
phishing?
so that is a social engineering attack.
PH, by the way.
Yeah,
Phishing.
PH. That's another social engineering attack. That's sending that fake email out that looks like it's coming from a website or your financial organization or whatever and saying, hey, we've got a security problem. We need you to update your account information. Well, back then, no one had ever seen a phishing attack. So you could ask for all the information. You were getting just complete identity profiles on a phishing email. Nowadays, you can't do that. Nowadays, you look for basically credentials because everyone is aware of phishing. But back then, it was complete information. We had phished out, I don't know, 200,000 E-Trade accounts is what we had the login
Like
credentials
login
for.
password. Yeah.
Login password, complete, social, date of birth, mother's maiden, account information, everything else. So we had access to those E-Trade accounts. E-Trade initially had no security in place. So you could cash out the account, ACH the money out to whatever account you wanted to. Went through just ate them alive on that for 4 to 6 months. E-Trade got to the point where you couldn't do any ACH coming out. They locked everything down. Well, you're still sitting on thousands of E-Trade accounts. How do you make money on that?
It's a good question.
Yeah. So what you do is you find some fat cat that's got his retirement, invested in blue chips. Same time, you find a penny stock. You open up a brand new account, buy into that penny stock, cash the fat cat out, buy into that same penny stock, pump and dump schemes all of a sudden. So you're destroying people's retirement accounts for just a few $1,000s. Bam, bam, bam. And of course, E-Trade's response is not our problem. It's your problem. You shouldn't have given up your password or what have you at that point. And you still see that issue today with Zelle scams and things like that.
Which scam?
Zelle, so the instant payment that
Oh, so
makes
the
that-
same kind of operations
Same
happening
type
with
of
different
things. Yeah,
with
it's-
different
it's-
payment mechanisms.
you find an easy way to exploit a system, and typically the financial organization, not our problem. Our system's secure. It's the humans. It's their errors. Well, not really. You've got some culpability in that, and you're just trying to avoid paying the part of the bill. Is what's going on.
One of the things, just to stay on fishing for a bit, is it really makes me sad because there's been people on all kinds of platforms, like including YouTube comments, but emails too. They figured out emails somehow. So people are now seeing the followers of this particular podcast who are fans. They're finding them on platforms like LinkedIn and YouTube and so on. And they are figuring out ways to get to those people by another channel,
Right.
which I suppose it seems more authentic to those people.
Right.
So they send them an email from what looks like me, and with this like loving. It's the interesting thing. The emails sound like something I would write. So these aren't even at this stage. It's not even. It doesn't feel automated, or if it's automated, it's there's a human in the loop that's really fine tuning to specific, or maybe I'm very predictable, but it's very loving in the way I
Sure.
would write a message.
Well, and so think about that, all right? So when phishing first comes out, you could look at the language of the text or the website and say, if you were paying attention, that's so okay. So that's not an English speaker who wrote that typically, all right? But as time has went on, as the awareness of what a phishing attack looks like, we have people that are sitting down now and making sure that the language is proper. It gets worse than that, though, if you look at business email compromise. All right. So, the way a business email compromise typically works is the attacker will find a payroll person, find a CEO. He will fashion a spear phishing email, that's a phishing attack that's targeting one specific individual. All right. So he'll fashion a spear phishing email. And the way he does that is he pulls all the information he possibly can on that person. All right, that CEO. Maybe he'll spear that CEO just to get their login credentials to their email, just to read the emails. And he'll go in there and he'll start reading all these emails. He'll specifically read the emails to the payroll department, see what that relationship is. Are they talking about their kids? Talking about relationships? Talking about vacation? What are they talking about? How are they talking? Are they friendly? Are they sterile? What are they doing? All right. So then he decides, well, I'm going to go ahead and spearfish the payroll department as well. So then he spearfishes them, gets those credentials. At the same time, he creates a Unicode domain in whatever the company name is. All right. So instead of that English alphabet I, he's got that Russian letter that looks like an I, but without the dot on top.
Yeah.
All right. Comes back in email, blocks the real CEO's email, replaces that with the Unicode email that he's got, and then sends out a message using the correct language, the correct relationships, everything else, and says, hey, we're updating our account status. I need you to send this payment instead of over here. They've set up a new account. Send all payments over here now.
Mhm.
And that is business email compromise in a nutshell. All right. Works great.
Probably the larger the organization, the more susceptible to that kind of attack, because there's like a distribution of responsibility to where you're
Right.
more likely to believe that, okay, this other person is responsible. I'm sure they secured everything.
Absolutely.
I'm okay listening to this.
All right. So that's business email compromise, and it's those crimes, and it's one of the things you see about cybercrime. Cybercrime is not really sophisticated. It's not. The attacks are not sophisticated. The stat is 90% of every single attack uses a known exploit. It's not the stuff. It's not 0-day attacks.
Yeah.
They're out there, but if you're a criminal waiting on a 0-day to profit, you're going to starve to death. The meat and potatoes are at 90% known exploits.
And then the rest is, well, you're saying it's maybe really good at hiding. I wish you could tell their stories in the way, which is why you're fascinating, is you're able to tell these stories now, because it is studying human nature by exploiting it. But you get to understand like our weak points, our hope, our desire to trust others, also sort of the weak points and the failures of digital systems when at scale humans have to connect.
Right.
It's fascinating. This is a weird question, asking for a friend. Is spearfishing itself illegal? What's the legality here?
Oh, it's all illegal. Absolutely, it is. But
Is it absolute? So here's what. Okay, let me construct an example. So, if my friend were to spearfish like a CEO, right,
Mhm.
and get their information, and after they get control, say of their Twitter account, they tweet something loving and positive. What's the crime?
unauthorized access of advice.
What would be the punishment? Do you think?
That becomes questionable. So no monetary loss, or was there a monetary loss? Probably
no.
not. All right. So you have to figure out who the victim is before charges are pressed. Now, the crime would be unauthorized access. All right. But no real victim on that, unless, the person whose account you took over takes, exception to that. No monetary loss.
So there's not really standard like fines. and all
Probably
these
nothing's
kinds of
going to
things.
happen. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of interesting because it's so when I got the ransomware, when I got with the 0-day attack on the QNAP NAS,
Mhm.
you know, they they basically say the criminal is QNAP, the company, for having so many security vulnerabilities. They're like, you are the victim of QNAP's incompetence. That's the way they kind of phrase it.
And see, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. So SolarWinds, person responsible for the crime are the criminals who did the attacking, the actual criminals, not SolarWinds. Now, does that mean that SolarWinds isn't all fucked up? They are, and there needs to be some accounting in place. But the only individual, the only people responsible for crime are the criminals, and that's either online, in the physical world, what have you. You could be it's being an idiot is
Not a
not a
crime.
crime. Being 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 criminally negligent is,
Yeah.
and I think that SolarWinds is certainly responsible. Not responsible. They're culpable
Yeah.
for what happened.
Can you actually tell folks about SolarWinds? What is it? What are some interesting things that you're aware of?
Yeah,
Like some,
SolarWinds it provided a backbone of security for hundreds, thousands of different companies. If you looked at a lot of security companies were using SolarWinds that would allow you to get a snapshot of the entire system that they were working on. So what happens is you get a Russian group that comes in and they basically they hack into SolarWinds and get access to it, and it allows them to view every single thing. I mean, every single thing about every single client that SolarWinds had at that point. So entire snapshots of all the IP that was going on, all the emails, all the communications, every single secret that was going on with those companies. If a company had software like Microsoft, it allowed them to look at the source code of everything that was going on. I mean, it's just a complete and total nightmare. All right. And something that you are not going to recover from. You're not. I mean, it's done at that point. There's not been a lot of news lately about it, but the fact of the matter is that's the type of attack that's a catastrophic attack.
so there's a huge amount of information that was read, saved elsewhere, probably.
Oh yeah,
And so now there's people sitting on information.
absolutely. So
So
think
you,
about one of the attack vectors has been Microsoft Outlook 365, things like that. This allowed the attackers to look at the source codes of that. So they have the source code now, so they can go through it line by line. Where are the vulnerabilities? Let's find new vulnerabilities, new 0 days. I said 0 days aren't common, but this opens up an entire new threat surface all of a sudden. So it's a completely catastrophic attack. Once all the chips are down, everything's tallied up, people are going to be like, "Yeah, we're done. We're done."
yeah. All right, this whole computer thing, we tried
We're
it.
done.
We're walking away.
We're done.
That's
So-
terrifying because so you're saying that there's not been obvious big negative impact from that yet. So but like
I mean, there's been a lot of negative impact, but we're just starting.
right. So
We're just starting.
the capacity for destruction is huge here. How much involvement from nation states do you think there is on this? on
It's
this element?
interesting. So you've got Iran, you've got North Korea, China, Russia. You got the big four. You also got Brazil.
Yeah.
You've got all these other countries that are interested in the United States as well. Nation states are interesting depending on who the nation state is. All right. So Russia is very good about working with the type of criminal that I used to be. They'll enlist these guys and steal information or what have you. Then Russia will take the information they want to, and they'll basically go off and sell whatever you want to and make some money. China's all about IP. North Korea is about stealing money because they really don't know what the hell else to do right now. But
So North Korea is actively involved in cybercrime.
absolutely, they've stolen a shitload of Bitcoin, everything else. So absolutely, they're actively involved with that. Very, very skilled attackers, very skilled. But even if you look at, I told you that stat about 90%. All right. So even though SolarWinds is going to be the number one attack, the follow up to that is this NotPetya attack that happened, and so that was the most sophisticated attack launched by the Russian Sandworm group, using all known exploits throughout. So it's not you're right in the sophistication is typically not technical sophistication, but it's that social engineering sophistication. How do you get these things put together in line to attack and succeed?
But when you get access to the source code, that's where technical sophistication could really do
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of damage.
And that's when you find out real quick that's what separates the men from the boys in this game. All right. Because all of a sudden it's not, I don't have to worry about social engineering. I've got source codes and I've got professionals that are looking at that, and that's your ass.
which then enables probably even more powerful social engineering methods too. I mean, it's just a
Right.
cascade of. Is this terrifying to you? By the way, this world that we're living in, as we put more and more of ourselves on the internet, into the metaverse, that there's so many more attack vectors on our well-being.
What's terrifying to me, I used to preach it on Shadow Crew, is the idea that the perception of truth is more important than the truth itself. It doesn't matter what the facts are, it matters what I can convince you of.
Yeah.
That's what's terrifying to me. So you look at deep fakes, you look at fake news, all the stuff that's going out, that becomes truly terrifying.
Maybe there's an angle where it's freeing if nothing is true and you can't trust anything.
But you see, we as human beings, we want to trust. We do. We need human interaction. And for that human interaction, you have to have a degree of trust.
But it's more like you let go of an idea of absolute truth and it more becomes like a blockchain style consensus. So you let go of, like, you know what? There's this human dream. You get this on the internet. You get like facts as if there's at the bottom. At the bottom, there's one turtle that's holding this like scroll that says these are the truths of the world. The problem is, I mean, maybe believing that is counterproductive. Maybe human civilization is an ongoing process of consensus. And so it's always going to be, everything is shrouded in, you can call them lies, or you can call them inaccuracies, or you can call them delusions. It's constantly going to be, it's going to be a sea of lies and delusions. But our hope is to, over time, develop bigger and bigger islands of consensus that allows us to live a stable and happy society. Don't call it true. Call it a stable consensus that creates a high quality of life for the
I like it.
inhabitants of the island.
I like it. I mean, I like it. I mean, we're going to agree
And
on
then don't
this.
use Outlook. No, I'm just kidding. So maybe step back. You mentioned, I'd love to talk about Shadow Crew. Maybe this is the right time to actually, yeah, let's go to Shadow Crew because
Sure,
it's such
sure.
a fascinating story. So tell me the story of building Shadow Crew, the precursor to today's darknet and darknet markets. This is why you're the original Godfather.
This is it. This is it. So I get married. I faked a car accident to get married. Got the money from that.
You're romantic.
I remember, like my dad, man. I'm the guy that, I get from mom, I get the criminal mindset. From dad, I get that don't want him to leave. So, so
To get married,
I met this
what's that
girl.
story?
Oh, dude, I was
How did you fall in love there?
my first girlfriend was a preacher's daughter, and crazy over her. Dated her for 5 years, and she figured out pretty quickly that, well, not quickly. It took her 5 years to figure out that Brett Johnson is not the man of God. I could talk it, but more that agnostic than anything. She breaks up with me. So I was at the community college.
You'd make one hell of a preacher, by the way. But
Thank you.
let's put.
Yeah.
But
So, I've got that Langston Hughes problem. I'm looking for Jesus to show up and he just doesn't. So I was at the community college, and I was a straight asshole. I was arrogant, conceited, everything else. And I had posted an advertisement on one of the billboards looking for an adult babysitter, hot blonde, come visit me in the library. Buddy of mine shows up, and he's like, Brett. And I was like, yeah. He's like, hottest girl in school, right down the hall. And I was like, serious? He's like, yeah. And I was like, let's go see. So I walk over, and there's these two guys that are hitting on her. So I just walk up, and me and Todd, that was my buddy, walk up, and I'm just sitting there and listening, and they're giving the spill and everything, and she's just kind of taking it in. Finally, I looked over and I was like, "You want to get out of here?" And one of the guys looks at me. He's like, "Hey, we're talking to her." And I was like, "Well, you're talking at her. You're not talking to her. I'm about to save her ass from you."
Damn, that's a smooth pickup line, by the way. If I ever heard one, that's good.
Like, look
You want to
at
get
her.
out of here?
So start dating, and she was the girl that screwed my brains out, man. And I head over heels. We got married 6 months later. 6 months.
That's what love does.
That's what it does. And I had, she didn't know I was a crook. She had no idea. She knew I was very bright. She knew I did a lot of theater, stuff like that. Got a job I was in Hazard. There was no jobs to be had. So I got a job in Lexington because we were going to be moving to UK. Got a job in Lexington at Lexmark testing printer boards, circuit boards. So I would leave on a Thursday night, work 3 18-hour shifts at Lexmark, come back home on Monday. Got married, faked a car accident to get the rest of the money that I needed to get married. And the faking on that, man, I had bought a Chevy Spectrum at a car auction, gave like $500 for it. My aunt had previously defrauded USAA insurance on a car accident. And she was telling me all about it. She's like, "Look, go down to this chiropractor, make sure you get the insurance where they'll pay for a rental car. They'll pay lost wages." I was like, "They pay lost wages?" She's like, "Yeah, they pay lost wages." I was like, She's like, "By the way, you work for me." And I was like, "I work for you." So
And you get to define the wage, and you can also define how long you were unable to work.
exactly. And the chiropractor will sign off on any damn thing. All right. So my cousin Ronnie, he figures out that he finds out I'm going to fake this car accident. So he comes to me. He's like, "Hey man, can I get in on that?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, you get in on that." So this kid, he's 5 days younger than I am. This kid, he goes to the dentist the day that we're faking it, has a tooth pulled, tells the dentist not to numb it, not to stitch it, just pull it. So he shows up. He shows up the day that we're driving out to fake the accident. He's got blood all over his shirt. He's still bleeding out of the mouth and everything else. I'm like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, it's going to be good. It's going to be good." I'm like, "Okay." So
Mm.
my mom, by this point, I'm living with my grandparents. My mom is up in the head of a hollow. So we're like, "We'll just do it up there. We'll go act like we're visiting my mom." On the way back out, ran over a mountain. I was like, "Okay." So we go visit and everything. Come back out that night, run over the side of the hill. Me and Ronnie walk back up. Of course, it totals the car. Walk back to my mom's, acting like we've wrecked. She knows what time it is and everything else, and file the claims. So that gets the money to get married, and me and my wife move from Hazard to Lexington. And I'm the kid that my crime usually, if I was a single guy, wouldn't break the law.
Mhm.
Wouldn't. I would be all right, But females involved, oh yeah. Oh yeah, got to spend the money, got to show them gifts. Everything else was never enough to show love in some sort of healthy way. Always had to go overboard, and typically it was buying some or stealing some sort of expensive crap.
So that was the thing. That was the way you show love, is by buying
Right.
expensive gifts.
Or something overboard. Back then, with Susan initially, it was, "Don't worry about working. I got it.
Mhm.
You just worry about going to school." She was a music major. I was like, "You just worry about going to school. So don't worry about cooking and cleaning. I got it. I got it." So not only was I this guy that was going overboard, but I was kind of a control freak too,
Mm.
right? So no, I got it. I got it. I got it. So here I am, 60-hour a week job, 18-hour class load, cooking and cleaning. Something had to give. I quit the job. I couldn't do it. Quit the job and start back in fraud and trying to hide that from her at the same time. So it was initially telemarketing fraud. Started. I was working at the first job I had was a telemarketer at a cemetery selling grave sites, and then that ended. Went over to work for the Shriners Circus, Shriners Hospital, and it was a third party company that was doing all the telemarketing. Made really good money doing that. That job ended, and then they pivoted over to working with Kiwanis clubs, selling food baskets to the food banks and everything.
Mhm.
So I stole the phone list and started up my own Kiwanis club, and would do the telemarketing, go out twice a week and pick up checks. Well, what happened is I'm going out picking up checks, go knock on a door. Turns out one of the persons that I had called was a law enforcement officer. So he was like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm with the Kiwanis Club." And he's like, "No, you're not." So got arrested, spent 3 months in a county jail for theft by deception. Got out, and we had to move from Lexington back to Hazard and live with Susan's parents. They had gotten a desktop computer, HP, and I started surfing around online. Found eBay, and didn't really know how to make money on eBay. About the same time, I'm committing low-level frauds online. I don't really talk about that in the past. The first time I've really talked about that, but I would pay for it with bad checks. So
So more so not using a platform like eBay, more
I would find somebody that had like a stereo system on eBay, something like that, and I'd pay for it with a bad check, and would rely on them not to chase me, or because they were out of state at that point, and the dollar amounts were very low. So got the money to move to finally did those schemes enough to get the money to move back to Lexington. Got to Lexington, and by this point, I'm doing these, like I said, these schemes on eBay, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way to make money on eBay. Got to be. So didn't really know how. One night, I'm watching Inside Edition with Bill O'Reilly, and they're profiling Beanie Babies. So I'm sitting there watching, and the one they're profiling is this one called Peanut the Royal Blue Elephant, selling for $1,500 on eBay. I'm sitting there going like, shit, I need to find me a peanut. So my initial thought was, well, there's got to be one in one of these Hallmark stores in Kentucky someplace. So I skipped class the next day, went out around to all the Hallmark stores looking for Peanut. No, idiot. He's on eBay for $1,500. So after a few hours of that, I'm like, turns out they had little gray Beanie Baby elephants for $8. Picked up one of those for $8. Stopped by Kroger on the way home, picked up a pack of blue Rit dye. Went home, tried to dye the little guy. So that was a nightmare. Turns out they're made out of polyester. Get them out of the bath. Looks like they've got the mange. And what happens is, I'm trying to dye the damn thing. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. That's just not going to work. So I got online, found a picture of a real one, posted it on eBay. And I was like, well, what I can do is I can claim that's the one I've got, and then maybe claim that it got messed up in the mail and work out like that. So posted a picture of a real one online. Woman thought I had the real thing. She wins the bid. That social engineering kicks in immediately. I didn't want to be on the defensive. I wanted to put her on the defensive. So as soon as she wins the bid, I send her a message. Hey, we've not done any business before. I don't even know if I can trust you. What I need you to do protects us both. Go down to the U.S. Postal Service. Get 2 money orders totaling $1,500. Send them to me, issued by the U.S. government. That way we're both protected. As soon as I get the money orders, I'll send you your animal. She believed that. Didn't ask any questions at all. She believed that. Sent me the money orders. I cashed them out. Sent her the creature. Immediately got a phone call. I didn't order this. My response, lady, you ordered a blue elephant. I sent you a blue-ish elephant.
Mhm.
And she got pissed, and she kept calling. What I found out, and that's really the first lesson of cybercrime that most of these criminals, including self, learns. If you delay a victim long enough, just keep putting them off. A lot of them, they get exasperated, throw their hands in the air, walk away. You don't hear from them. And none of them, to this day, none of them complain to law enforcement. They eat it.
So it's a mixture of like you're exhausted by the process, so it's just easier to walk away, and second, almost like an embarrassment.
So there's a whole slew of reasons. All right, there's the exhaustion, certainly. There's the embarrassment. So if you look at it today, where does the embarrassment come from? Well, the media, family members, we're all very good about blaming the victim for crimes. Why would you click on the link? Why would you send money to somebody you don't know? Blah blah blah. So you've got that's going on. You've got the issue of who do you complain to? Back then, you didn't know. Do you complain to local police? Because she's in another state. So which local police do you complain to?
Mm.
Do you complain to the feds? Well, it's not, the dollar amounts aren't high enough to complain to feds. Feds are going to tell you to go local.
Mm.
Local's going to tell you, hey, it happened in Kentucky. Complain to them. Kentucky's going to tell you, well, shit, you're over there. We need you to come in. So there's this whole issue of jurisdiction, of the blame factor, everything else. So I got away with that crime and did it under my own name at that point. I kept going and got better at it. Started to understand how to hide identities, things like that. Started selling pirated software. Pirated software led into installing mod chips. It was for the initial pirated software was Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1. Well, you had to have a mod chip in those to play the pirated discs. So I started selling and installing mod chips. That led into installing mod chips into cable television boxes so you could watch all the pay per view, which in turn led into programming satellite DSS cards, those 18-inch RCA satellite systems. Pull the card out of it, program it, turns on all the channels. Started doing that.
Can we just pause?
Mhm.
That is very entrepreneurial. So, just technically, so there's laws and rules that you're breaking nonstop. So there's also legitimate ways of doing that, which is break the rules of the conventions of the past. That's the first principles thing. That's
Sure.
what Elon Musk and his ilk do all the time.
Right.
That is guts and brilliance. But when it's crossing the lines of the law, actually sometimes the law is outdated. The thing is, as a human being, you have to then compute the ethical damage you're doing, like
Right.
ethically the damage you're doing about other human beings. That is fundamentally the thing that you're breaking, is you're adding to the suffering in the world in one way or another, and you're justifying it. But in terms of me sort of as an engineer, that is some gutsy thinking. That's how Woz and Steve Jobs thought.
Sure.
That's innovation. And maybe just think if you can introspect your thinking process here, you, this is a new. I like how you remember that it's an HP. Like what? This is a totally new thing to you. Computers is yet another domain. How are you figuring these puzzles out? Presumably mostly alone.
Alone.
When you were
Alone.
thinking through these problems,
Alone.
is there? This is a strange question to ask, but what is your thinking process? What is your approach to solving these problems?
So the
These
approach is you do something and you fuck it up and you think back, okay, how do I fix that?
Yeah.
So you fix that aspect, you commit the crime again, and it goes a little bit further and it screws up. Okay, how do I fix that? What's the issue on that? How do I fix that?
So there's not a deep design thinking like
Later on, it becomes that. Once you lay that groundwork of the way these schemes are working, all right, it becomes that, and you can apply that to other things in cybercrime as a whole. All right, but initially, it's basically trial and error. You've got a problem. How do you solve that problem? All right. So how do I'm committing these crimes under my name. How do I solve that?
Mm.
Well, one of the first principles that we started to teach on Shadow Crew is all crimes should begin with identity theft. That's one of the main first principles that a lot of people to this day still don't really get. All right. Why would I commit a crime under my name if I can do it under your name? So that's one of the big buffers. And that takes trial and error to get to that point where you start to understand that's the way crime should operate if you're a criminal. All right. But with me, it was, it's trial and error. It's that childhood where that mindset is kind of ingrained in you, where you're looking for ways, let's say non-traditional ways of getting around things or getting through things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions I'll probably ask this later is there's also a unique aspect to the outcome of what you were doing, which is you didn't get caught for a very long time.
Right.
We'll talk about why that is. And the thing is, it's so interesting. All crime probably to be effective should start with identity theft.
Right.
I like that identity theft because identity theft can take so many forms.
Right. Right.
So yes, so Shadow Crew.
So
So as we're you started with love.
started with love. So now we're doing these schemes online. I'm programming these satellite DSS cards, and one of the interesting things, and you still see that to this day, is something will happen that will create an industry for criminals. All right. So what happened is Canadian judge rules about the same time that I'm doing these satellite cards, Canadian judge comes out and says, hey, it's legal for my citizens to pirate those signals. And his reasoning is since RCA doesn't sell the systems up here, my citizens can pirate it. Okay. So what happens is overnight, about the same time, PayPal comes into play. So PayPal's coming right online at about the same time. Overnight, little cottage industry pops up in the United States. You go down to Best Buy, buy the system for $100, take it out in the parking lot, open the system up, open the box up, pull the system out, pull the card out, throw the system away, program the card, ship its ass to Canada, $500 a pop. Started doing that. Business is good. Making, $3,000-$4,000 a week doing that. I'm like, so they're sending money to PayPal. I'm having the PayPal cashed out to bank accounts in my name at that point. And I get scared because by that point, I'm still in $4,000 to $6,000 a week. And I'm like, somebody's going to be looking at money laundering. So get it in my head. I'm like, best thing that I can do is get a fake driver's license, open up a bank account using that driver's license, cash out at the ATM. Good. No idea where to get a fake ID. Not a clue. So I get online, looked around, spent a couple weeks looking around, thought I found a guy. He went by the screen name of Fake ID Man. Thought I found a guy, sent him $200, sent him my picture. Dude rips me off. And I'm like,
The
what
player
the
got
hell,
played.
man? Oh, I got played. He had a little website set up with reviews, and I'm like, oh, it's all legitimate.
Yeah.
He's building that trust that I talked about.
Mhm.
So the end result, I got pissed, and there was no site that dealt with anything criminal or cybercrime related. The only real avenue you had was an IRC chat session, internet relay chat, and that I'm sure you've been on that. It's this rolling chat board. You don't know who the hell you're talking to. Most of them are full of shit. You can't trust anybody, and you're sitting there trying to conduct business. So, if somebody claims they've got a product or service, do they have it? Does it work? Or are they just going to rip you off? Because in those channels, everyone's a criminal.
Mhm.
I kept looking around, and I happened upon a website called Counterfeit Library. And Counterfeit Library only dealt with counterfeit degrees and certificates, as on degree mill type stuff. But they had a forum, and no one was using the forum. So I basically get on there and bitch every day.
Mhm.
I got ripped off, don't know what to do, bam, 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 bam. About the same time I start doing that, two other guys show up. One's named Mr. X, he's out of Los Angeles. The other guy's named Beelzebub, he's out of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And we all become buddies.
Mhm.
So, a few weeks of me bitching, a few weeks of them responding. Beelzebub gets me on ICQ, and he sends me a message. He's like, I went by the screen name of Gollum at that point, Gollum Fun. And he's like, Gollum, I can make you a fake driver's license. And I was like, well, motherfucker, do it. And he's like, well, I'm going to charge you for it. I'm like, yeah, you are. He's like, I am. I was like, no, you're not. And he's like, look, man, he said, this business, if you're going to do this, you have to trust people or you're going to fail. He said, so I'm going to charge you $200, but I'm going to send you a driver's license. Well, by this point, I'm friends with the people who own Counterfeit Library. We're emailing, chatting, everything else. And I tell him, I'm like, okay, I'm going to send you $200. That way, when you rip me off, I'll have them ban you and I don't have to deal with you anymore. And he's like, bet. I'm like, okay. So I sent him $200, sent him my picture. 2 weeks later, I get a driver's license. Name is Steven Schwecke out of Ohio. And real guy. Worked at ADP payroll to this day, works at ADP is where the guy works. Got the driver's license. And to me, at that point in time, it was the prettiest thing that I'd ever seen. I'd never seen a fake ID before. I thought it was great. Turns out, looking back, it's like,
Mm.
So,
But it was kind of a strong first step in creating a fake identity.
very strong, very strong. So this
So
guy,
that was like, Gasco just on the point he made that if you're going to be successful in this, you should have people you trust. Is he right on that?
oh, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely.
So you have to have, this is like mob.
You have to.
You have to have an inner circle that
So,
you trust.
I'm sure you've probably heard me say this before. Successful cybercrime. All right. There are three necessities to being successful online if you're a criminal. Three necessities are gathering data, committing the crime, and then cashing it out. All three of those necessities have to work in conjunction. If they don't, the crime fails. The problem, and it's a huge problem, is that one guy can't do all three things. You've got the people who gather the data, basically the general store salespeople who sell PII, credit card logins, uh, data tools. They'll sell the spoofed phone numbers or the RDPs, stuff like that. A lot of the times, those people don't know how to commit the crime, and those people certainly don't know how to launder the money out, put cash in pocket. So you've got, either because of a skill level, sometimes a geographic location limits what that individual can do. All right. So you have to rely on people who are good in areas where you are not in order for that crime to succeed. And that means you have to trust those people. So what happens with Shadow Crew? All right. So Counterfeit Library is the start. All right. Counterfeit Library transitions over to Shadow Crew. Right before that transition, there's a Ukrainian guy by the name of Dmitry Golubov. He was a spammer at that point in time. He saw what we were doing with Counterfeit Library, and he liked it. He was getting all these credit card details, and this kid, I mean, he's a kid. This kid has an idea, and his idea was, I wonder if people would buy stolen credit card details.
It's pretty good Ukrainian
Thank
Russian
you.
accent.
So he picks up the phone. He calls his buddies. They call their buddies. They have a physical conference in Odessa. 150 of these cyber criminals show up, and they launch this idea. This launches a website called Carter Planet, which is the genesis of all modern credit card theft as we know it. All right. And so remember I mentioned those three necessities of cybercrime. Dmitry had all the credit data in the world, and he partnered with all these other Ukrainians who had all this data as well. The problem was is so much fraud had been committed on that eastern side of Europe that every card had been shut down. Even if you were a legitimate card holder and tried to cash it out, you weren't doing it at that point. So again, those three necessities: gathering data, committing crime, cashing out. Dmitry had the data. They could commit the crime. They could not put cash in pocket. So we were running Counterfeit Library. One day I get this message, or not a message, one day Script shows up, and he posts just on the general forum. He posts, hey, I've got credit card data. Give me an address, give me a burner phone number, wait 5 business days, order whatever you want to. We had never seen anything like that. We were a PayPal fraud and eBay fraud site is what we were, and fake driver's licenses. So and we had, I guess we had 2,000-3,000 members at that point. So the response from the members was, that can't be real. You've got to be law enforcement. It's got to be trying to get us arrested and everything else. Let me backtrack a little bit. So the driver's license that I had got, Beelzebub had an idea. What he wanted to do is he wanted to sell driver's licenses. Mr. X wanted to sell Social Security cards. He made a very passable Social Security card. Me, I had no skill level on that. I knew PayPal fraud and eBay fraud. So Beelzebub was like, tell you what, you be the reviewer. That way you get every product or service that comes in. They'll have to send it to you or let you have access to it. You can learn the entire game. And because you're not selling anything, it gives you legitimacy on the reviews. All right. So I started out as a reviewer, the only reviewer on Counterfeit Library. So over the next year, Beelzebub, turns out he was a pot grower. He goes back to growing pot because he wasn't making shit selling driver's licenses. Mr. X, about a year and a half in, he gets arrested, cashing out cashing out at casinos, doing some shit with that. So I'm the only guy left standing, and I'm at the top of the heap. So, and it becomes this thing where if I review somebody, they make a lot of money. If I don't, you don't do business here. So Script shows up saying he's got this. I'm the only reviewer on site. People think he's law enforcement. First week it goes like that. After a while, I'm like, okay, I got to do something. And I'm scared, man, because I'm like, he may be law enforcement. So I get him on ICQ and I'm like, hey, you have to be reviewed. And he's like, what the hell is that? So I tell him what it is. He's like, you review me. And I was like, yeah, that's the idea. So give him a drop address, give him a burner phone number, wait 5 business days, and I try to hit Dell for $5,000. The order fails. I get back on ICQ. Hey, man, it didn't work. He's like, give me one more chance. I was like, look, I'll give you one more chance, but it's your ass after that. And he's like, one more chance. I'm like, okay, give him another address, another phone number, wait another 5 business days. hit Thompson's Computer Warehouse for $4,000, Dell for $5,000. Order goes through, get the products in. I post that review on Counterfeit Library, and literally overnight, we turned from an eBay PayPal fraud site to a credit theft site, and that becomes a lot of money really quickly for members. So we were doing now it's called CNP fraud, card not present fraud. So you hit an online merchant with stolen credit card data. Back then, a fairly experienced fraudster could profit $30,000 to $40,000 a month. Okay, just buying, laptops, what have you, and cashing out, put them on eBay for sale and sell them like that. And 30 to 40K a month was the profit on that. Script had a lot of buddies. He had people like Roman Vega, these other guys that would sell not just credit card data, but counterfeit physical credit cards as well.
Hmm.
We had,
Counterfeit, not stolen. So
not
counterfeit.
stolen, counterfeit.
That must be tough to do.
So the connections
That must be
we
harder than
it's crazy.
driver's
It's
licenses.
crazy. So on your back. So what BOA initially had, and I became the United States salesperson for BOA. But what he had is he was the first dumps provider in the United States. So on the back of your credit or debit card, there's a magnetic stripe. 3 data tracks on the stripe. There's the first data track is the customer's name. Second data track is the card number / 16-digit algorithm outside of that. That's important. We'll get back to that in a few minutes. Third data track is called indiscriminate data. No one uses it. All right. So what's bought and sold is the second data track. It's called the dump. And the reason that's sold is when you go into a shop, you insert the card or you swipe the card, the only information that's sent out for verification is the second data track. All right. That goes to the processor bank for verification. The first data track, that customer's name, shows up on the screen of the cashier in front of you. So what typically happens is you buy 10 of these dumps, you get 10 counterfeit cards, encode track 2 on all 10 cards. Track 1, you create 1 fake driver's license. Track 1 is just the name of that 1 fake driver's license. That way, when you go in the shop, swipe the card, track 2 gets sent off for verification. Track 1 shows up on the screen in front of the cashier. If you ever ask for ID, you pull out the fake ID. Everyone's nice, warm, fuzzy. You walk out with the cameras, Rolex.
And track 1 could be it doesn't have to be connected. It's not connected to track 2.
Not connected at all. All right. That's
man,
one of the
all
big
right.
problems. All right.
Yeah.
So Script brought a host of technical people into that type of environment, all committing credit card theft. We had proxy providers. We had all these people that were doing this stuff. We start making a lot of money. A lot. And the reason that happens is, again, Script did not have the ability to cash out. So he was reduced to selling things. And at the same time, he's looking for, how do I make more money? All right. The Ukrainians happened upon this thing called the CVV1 breach, or hack is what they called it. So what happens is, remember I told you track 2, card number / 16-digit algorithm. You got to know the algorithm to encode it so you can swipe the card or take it to the ATM machine. All right, ATM. You got to know it. Now, we were fishing data from hell. I mean, we were doing a lot of fishing, a lot. We were getting pins, we were getting card numbers, but you can't get that algorithm. So the Ukrainians start testing stuff. What they found out was no bank had implemented the hash on track 2. So you take the card number / any 16 digits, it would encode. Take it to the ATM, pull cash out because you got the PIN. All right. Started doing that.
Wait. Sorry, I'm trying to understand. So that means, so if there's no are they generating random numbers, or do they have valid numbers for track 2?
No numbers were needed at all, as long as just the track 2 was a complete track 2.
So it's a valid track 2 that doesn't matter. So the PIN is the thing that gets you in?
Back then, all right. So back then, what we're talking about is you needed, typically today, you need a whole track 2. You need that valid track 2.
Yeah.
All right. You need the 16-digit card number / and then whatever that algorithm is out beside of it.
Yeah.
All right. Back then, none of the banks had implemented that algorithm. So while the algorithm was there, you didn't need it to encode.
Interesting.
So
you can make a lot of money with physical
So
fake
much money that
credit
card not
cards,
present
debit
fraud,
cards.
card not present fraud, remember I told you was $30,000 to $40,000 a
Yeah,
month. All right. That turned into $30,000 to $40,000 a day.
yeah.
The Ukrainians, again, they can't cash it out. They've got all the data on the planet, but they can't cash it out. Those three necessities of cybercrime. So the deal became you have to rely on the Americans. Tell you what, we'll give you 40%.
Mhm.
So you had all these cashiers that were 40% of $40,000 a day. Yeah, we'll take that. All right. Send the rest of it over to by Western Union or what have you to your Ukrainian contact. That's before cryptocurrency came into play. Now you had a couple of forerunners with eGold and Liberty Reserve, things like that. But back then, it starts out with Western Union, then it becomes prepaid cards, sending track information over, loading the card up like that, and then finally you get to eGold, Liberty Reserve, and then today it's with crypto. That's used. Um, Started stealing a lot of money, a lot, and that got law enforcement attention. So we started to see, I mean, just it's a crazy ass story. We started to see IPs coming in from law enforcement agencies, government agencies, because back then they didn't know how to shield their identity either. So you saw Secret Service, you saw DOD, you saw all these and you're like, that's interesting. So, and at the same time, we had it was called a hack, but it wasn't a hack. We had a guy that worked at T-Mobile in Los Angeles. This is the same guy that back then published Paris Hilton's phone contact list. That made
Nice.
a lot of news. Not only did he do that, but it turned out that the Los Angeles Secret Service agency was using T-Mobile phones. So he's getting text messages of the Secret Service investigating Shadow Crew. And he posts those damn things on Shadow Crew. So I'm sitting there going, head of the pile. I'm sitting there going, this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well. So at the same time, I had access. I'd started out with access to the Indiana State Sex Offenders Registry, and I was using that to create bank accounts, launder the money out, and I would sell the bank accounts, stuff like that. They shut that down. The next database I had access to was the Texas driver's license database, and started using that to create fake driver's licenses, what have you. And then finally, we happened upon the California Death Index. All right. Complete information, mother's maiden, socials, DOBs, all that. And it's like, got to be a use for that. Well, you can use it to create identities all day long. My idea was I wonder if you could take somebody that's died and then file for Social Security death benefit, not death benefits, but Social Security benefits for that individual and get that recurring paycheck in. So that takes a lot of research to start seeing if you can do that. How does the federal government know if you're dead? Do federal indexes reference state indexes? You got all these questions that pop up. Well, it turns out federal indexes don't reference state indexes. It's against the law. So it also turns out the only way the federal government knows you're dead is prior to 1998, the family had to file a Social Security death benefit for that person. All right.
Wow.
Prior to
Which, of
98,
course, most people don't.
right. Prior to 98, it took the family. After 98, the hospital can do it, funeral home can do it, or the family can do it. So a lot more people have it filed after if they've died.
But it's still, there's a lot of people
A
probably
lot of
slip
people
through the
don't
cracks.
because that death benefit's only like $219.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody's thinking about that shit. So I started to apply for Social Security benefits. Nope. Number's dormant. So they want you to come in for a physical interview. Here I am, 32. You're not going to pass as a 65-year-old. So no. So the next idea I had was wonder if you could file income tax returns on these people.
Hmm.
Turns out you can all day long. So I started doing that. And I started to steal once I got ramped up because you test everything. You're testing to make sure you got to figure out what the deposit instrument is and everything else. And once you get all that lined out, I started to steal $160,000 a week, every week for 10 months out of the year
By paying taxes.
by filing fake
Filing fake tax
returns.
returns.
So you find a business,
Yes.
and the way the system worked is the IRS will issue a refund on somebody
Yeah.
before they're able to verify that that person worked for an employer. Still works like that today. All right. So
And you're keeping the amounts relatively low
keep them at
per person.
$3,000. All right. Amounts are very low.
But you're still able to achieve scale because this is large index
Right.
of real
I got to
people.
where, and I was manual.